The time is 6:15. Here is the news edited by Dilini Gunawardana, read by Victor Raj. Here are the headlines of the local news. The President directs officials to deliver immediate relief to those impacted by the adverse weather. The second review of IMF-supported program is expected to be completed successfully next month. Upgrading of the Northern Railway line will be completed by August. UMP proposes 2-year extension for presidential tenure to secure economic recovery. A committee is appointed to inquire into the wage disparities. Foreign news: more European countries recognize Palestine as an independent state. Sports news: athletics. Sri Lanka bags a gold medal at the Belt and Road Initiative Athletics Meet in China. Local news in detail. President Ranil Wickremesinghe directed officials to deliver immediate relief to those impacted by the adverse weather and to maintain relief efforts until the situation improves. The Disaster Management Centre is also taking steps to compensate those who lost their lives. Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardana says that it is unlikely that the reconstruction work on the Northern Railway's track, the development of the Northern Railway line, could be completed by August this year. Unauthorized constructions in several places of the railway reservoirs can be removed. Once the construction is completed, the public could reach Jaffna within 5 hours via train. Meanwhile, an expert committee has been appointed to inquire into the increased salary of the estate workers. A comprehensive study will be carried out by this committee in this regard. The opinions of the trade unions and estate workers will be taken into consideration. The minister further added that the Economic Transformation Act is a milestone in the national economy. UMP General Secretary Palitharangai Bandara has presented a proposal to postpone both the presidential and general elections by a span of 2 years. In his statement, he emphasized that if circumstances warrant, this proposal can be formally submitted to the Parliament, paving the way for a referendum. Speaking to reporters in Colombo today, the UMP General Secretary highlighted a pivotal moment in Sri Lanka's history. The nation faced economic adversity, but resolute measures were taken to steer it away from the brink. These efforts yielded significant victories. The government has regained international trust, stabilized the economy, and provided relief to the citizens. Administrative reforms have streamlined governance, and the education system has returned to normalcy. All these achievements are attributed to the current president's leadership. He underscored that the country's current need to do not align with an immediate presidential or parliamentary election. Instead, he called upon all members of parliament to rally behind the proposal to extend the current president's term by 2 years, along with the corresponding extension of the current parliament's tenure. This news comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. Continuing with more local news. Despite a lack of resolution to their concerns, university non-academic staff is continuing their strike for the 27th day today. Over 15,000 university non-academic staff launched this strike, demanding solutions for several issues, including the payment of the agreed monthly allowance and the provision of the 15% salary cut dating back to 2016. The non-going strike has significantly disrupted studies at many universities across Sri Lanka. Meanwhile, the Cabinet has decided to appoint a specialist committee to study the constant concerns brought by the employees' groups and the trade unions about salary anomalies in the government service. The ministry further requests the university and academic staff to call off the trade union action. That ends local news.
The main news story is brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandlal Veerasinghe assured that the second review of IMF-supported program is expected to be completed successfully next month as the government anticipated. Accordingly, the next tranche will be received in June 2024. He made these remarks at a media briefing held today. He further added that the central bank is a state body. Several forcing statements in this regard were made in the parliament recently. He stressed that he is ready to make an explanation on this matter to the parliament whenever required. Meanwhile, the central bank has received complaints on 150 legal institutions that obtained deposits from the public. Inquiries in this regard are being carried out. Legal action has already been taken against 4 institutions. That came to you on Main News Story.
The main news story was brought to you by Sinhala Vedamahatmya.
Moving on to Watchlight, the Met Department has issued an advisory for strong winds and rough seas for the sea areas around the island. The red alert states that the sea areas around the island will be very rough with very strong gusty winds up to 60 to 70 km per hour. Thus, naval and fishing communities are advised not to venture into the sea areas around the island until further notice.
Coming up, World News.
Headlines first. More European countries recognize Palestine as an independent state. The UK Premier pledges tax cuts for pensioners as Tories face election wipeout. Deadly landslide threatens thousands more in Papua New Guinea. World News in detail. Spain has formally recognized Palestine as a state in a historic move towards justice and the only route to achieve peace, according to Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez. Meanwhile, Ireland and Norway are to formally announce the same move today. Israel's army continues to pound Rafah, their attacks coming on night after Israeli forces bombed a tent camp housing displaced Palestinians in a designated safe zone in Rafah, killing 45 people. Israeli military confirmed it carried out the attack on the camp, saying it targeted Hamas fighters. Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has pledged to cut taxes for millions of pensioners as he seeks to turn around his Conservative Party's dismal poll numbers ahead of general election in July. Under the plans announced recently, the tax-free allowance for pensioners would increase by at least 2.5%, or in line with the highest of average earning or inflation. The proposals would see some 8 million pensioners pay about £100 less tax in 2025 and about £275 less annually from 2030. Under the triple lock introduced by the Conservatives in 2011, the state pension already rises either by 2.5% or in line with average earnings, whichever is highest. But income tax thresholds have been frozen since 2021. Papua New Guinea authorities say nearly 7,900 people living near the site of the deadly landslide are at risk as rock and debris continues to move down the hillside. An alert for potential evacuation has been put out, mentioning the mountain remains very active. Rescuers say it is increasingly unlikely that victims will be found alive in the rubble. The UN says it has been difficult to establish an exact death toll as access to the site and those buried under the mass remain difficult. To wrap up the world news, let's take a look at the headlines once again. More European countries recognize Palestine as an independent state. The UK Premier pledges tax cuts for pensioners as Tories face election wipeout. Deadly landslide threatens thousands more in Papua New Guinea. That ends World News.
Development News.
Cabinet approval was granted to host the 60th session and ministerial meeting of the International Coconut Community in November 2024. The objective of hosting the massive conference in Colombo is to achieve the objectives of increasing foreign exchange earnings, promoting the Sri Lankan coconut industry among member countries, and improving cooperation between key stakeholders in the coconut sector. The International Coconut Community (ICC) is an international organization of coconut producing countries organized in 1969 under the aegis of the United Nations Economic and Social Commission for Asia and Pacific. ICC currently has 21 member countries accounting for over 90% of world coconut production and exports of the coconut products.
Moving on with sports news.
Aruna Darshan won the 400 meters event at the second Belt and Road Invitation Athletics Championship bronze label in China. He finished the event in 45.48 seconds. It is second only to his personal best of 45.30 seconds. He is scheduled to participate in the 200-meter event tomorrow. That ends sports news.
Go ekak tiyana youth eකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගීත හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Lanka GPT proudly announces the upcoming launch of Seagiriya Artificial Intelligence, scheduled to be held next July. This platform aims to penetrate the Sri Lankan market and extend its reach to regions that hold a significant population of Sri Lankans. The initiative had been made possible through collaborations with the multitude of non-profit organizations. That came to you on Business News.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money.
Go ekak tiyana youth එකට life එකේ change එකට නියමෙට set වෙන්න ඇස් වහගෙන දැකපු ගීත හැබැයි කරන්න youth එකට නියමෙට set වෙන friendship එක මෙන්න.
The all-new NSB Ithru account, NSB IM, a plan for your dream.
Moving on to economic news, the central bank states that there is a possibility to further reduce the market interest rates. Central bank also mentioned that it is expected that the relevant reductions will be provided to the customers by the country's financial institutions soon. That ends economic news.
Weather report.
The prevailing showery and windy conditions over the island are expected to continue further due to the active southwest monsoonal condition. Showers will occur at times in the western, Sabargama, central, northwestern and southern provinces. Heavy showers above 100 mm are likely at some places in the western and Sabargama province and in the Nuwara district. Showers or thundershowers will occur at a few places in the Ur province and in Ampar and Batiklo districts in the evening or night. Strong winds of about 50 to 60 km per hour can be expected at times over the western slopes of the central hills in the northern, north-central, western, southern and northwestern provinces and in Trincomalee and Monragala districts. That ends with the report. To wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka, let's take a look at the headlines once again. The President directs officials to deliver immediate relief to those impacted by the adverse weather. The second review of IMF-supported program is expected to be completed successfully next month. Upgrading of the Northern Railway line will be completed by August. UMP proposes 2-year extension for presidential tenure to secure economic recovery. A committee is appointed to inquire into the wage disparities. Foreign news: more European countries recognize Palestine as an independent state. Sports news: athletics. Sri Lanka bags a gold medal at the Belt and Road Invitation Athletics meeting in China. With that, we wrap up the evening news on Radio Sri Lanka. You are listening to us on FM 97.4, 97.6 and on the web www.slbc.lk. The time is exactly 31 minutes down 6 o'clock.